Chapter 16 Summary by Gabrielle Krakis. In Chapter 16, it talks about how a contract may be avoided if it isn't in appropriate form. I will be talking about the kinds of contracts that require certain expectations in the written contracts. Chapter 16 starts off with the Statute of Frauds. The Statute of Frauds is when every state has their very own statute that explains what type of contracts can be in writing. Fun fact: the Statute of Frauds originated from the 17th century of English law. Since each state has their own statute on written contracts, the statute can be slightly different from one another. One thing that can be deceitful about the Statute of Frauds is that it doesn't apply to fraud. The thing with fraud is it can be verbal when it requires it to be written. When the contract is written, it's commonly voidable. There are contracts that can be written. These contracts are the following: land, contracts that can be performed within 1 year, collateral, a debt of an estate, promises made in consideration of marriage, and the sale of goods that cost $500 or more. One easy example is land. Land is real property, and anything on the ground, like fences, buildings, trees, bushes, etc., must be a written contract. The Statute of Frauds even has a defense for any verbal contract on the selling of land. One example, in a case in point, is where Talat Salman and Sabina Chaudhuri both agreed to buy a convenience store and gas station. They did sign a written contract that later was typed up. One thing about the contract of buying the store is that it was only described by its street address. The cost of the store, owned by Muhammad Salman, was $975,000, and they gave him a $25,000 security deposit. Later on, when the buy didn't go through, Salman filed a breach of contract lawsuit. Since the court found the arrangement as inefficient because it didn't properly describe the property that was being purchased, therefore, to obey the Statute of Frauds, the contract was void. The buyer's security check was returned. Another contract that must be written is the 1-year rule. The 1-year rule is when a contract cannot be achieved within 1 year from the day after the contract is formed. Another interesting one to me is promises made in consideration of marriage. This contract is a little different. This is when, say, a father promises to pay a man $40,000 when he marries his daughter. That promise must be a written contract. There is sufficiency of writing in general. It will count as a written requirement or a memorandum. The signature can also just be initials or typed electronically. It also doesn't have to be at the end of a document and can be anywhere, middle, beginning, side, or end. What constitutes as a writing? It can be an order, confirmation, invoice, sales, check, fax, or email. The end.